Hello everyone, you're back here with Sewing with Cody and Pete, and we are working on the Bernina 570 Quilters Edition, and we're doing another segment of the Bernina brochure. So this is part 4, and we'll be going over embroidery. So we've already covered general information in part 1, sewing and quilting in part 2, standard sewing and quilting accessories in part 3, and now we're on the last segment, which is embroidery. So, if you happen to watch the embroidery segment on the Bernina 535, the 570 when it comes to embroidery is very, very similar with a few minor things. And of course, I'll touch on those things there. Now, the 590, I will have a separate video working with the 590 in the embroidery segment because it is so different. That's where the 590 is completely different is when it comes to embroidery. And remember, the 570, you can get it with the embroidery module or you can get it without the embroidery module. So you have the option of embroidery to add it at the time of purchase or later on. With the 590, it's a package. So you can't take away the embroidery and just get the machine. You have to get it as a combo. It's not sold separately. The maximum embroidery field for all of our 5 series is 15.7 inches by 5.9 inches. They all stitch it up to 1,000 stitches per minute. Now, with the 570, this machine has 250 built-in embroidery designs, where like the 535 only had 50, but the 590 does have 275. So the embroidery alphabets that are built in, the 570 has 7, opposed to our 4 that came with the 535. So we can see the 7 different fonts that are built in. And just like with all of our Bernina 5 series, they read multiple formats, including EXP, DST, PES, PEC, JEF, SEW, PCS, and XXX. So it encompasses many, many other brands. So if you're coming from a Janome, a Brother, a Babylock, a Singer, or a commercial machine, all those designs will work beautifully on this machine. You don't have to change the format. And remember, they all take a USB stick. So all of our Bernina 5 series embroidery have on-screen design editing, so you can reposition, mirror image, rotate, scale, and combine designs. This machine does not have pinpoint placement, does not have undo redo, does not have group and ungroup, and does not have the color wheel. Those are all found on the 590, and we'll go over those on the 590. This one does have the invisible secure. So basically, it will secure the stitches by going over exactly where a stitch has already been created or where a stitch will be created, so you don't see any extra stitches while it's locking in and securing those stitches. It has the thread up command, which is a wonderful feature. We'd use this a lot when we're quilting in the hoop. So in embroidery, when we click this button here, it will allow us to take one full stitch and bring up our bobbin thread. This is the back of our design, especially when working with a quilt, is nice and pretty. This one does have the programmable jump stitch cutting. So basically, even with the 535, we saw this, where if we have a name, like ABC, and we have a space between the A, the B, and the C, and we want to make sure we cut those stitches, we can tell the machine to cut jump stitches that are as small as just 1 millimeter apart. So here is where the 570 is a little different than what the 535 was capable of. So with this machine, it can cut jump stitches that are as close as 1 millimeter apart. Both the 570 and the 590, along with the 500, is these machines have what they call a threadaway mode. So what it does, so once it cuts that jump stitch, it then moves the hoop over to some direction, and it pulls that tail that would be hanging out of the needle out of your quilt frame, or it will pull that tail out of your hoop and then move to the next spot where it needs to stitch, and it'll pull and bury that tail underneath, so it eliminates all of your jump stitches. It's a wonderful, wonderful feature for many, many projects. And the 570 and the 590 have that, where the 535 do not. It doesn't have the creative consultant for embroidery, and it does not have endless embroidery. That's only found in the 590 and the 500. It does have word art, which is a really nice feature. So with the built-in fonts, we can tell it, okay, we want to use this font. We'll just use something quick and simple. And we can see here we have our font. So in the word art, we can come to our I. We can scroll down to where it says ABC. So here I can use my bottom knob. I can turn it clockwise. I can arch it up, turn it counterclockwise, and I can arch it down. But also I can use a top knob to space those letters apart if I needed to more. That's our word art, and that's found on all of the Bernina 5 series in embroidery. Something else the 590 has, which is a really nice feature, we use it quite often, and that is the ability to embroider sewing stitches, which is really nice. So with our 590, what it does is we have a separate folder. We have a separate folder on our home screen that are our sewing stitches. So it will we'll be able to select whatever stitch we want or multiple stitches and be able to embroider them out and make them nice and big. However, the 570 does kind of have this feature. So it's a little bit trickier and it takes a little bit more, it's a little more involved. But what it does is in our favorite folder, if we click here, we'll see we have a stitch here. We have a pattern, a design. And there's always going to be something there. And what that is it's the sewing stitch that we had pulled up on the sewing side before we came over to the embroidery side. So this machine does allow us to embroider sewing stitches, but it just takes us more steps to get it. Especially when we're working with multiple stitches. But this is a wonderful feature on both machines because it does allow you to make a sewing stitch much bigger and stitch it out really nice, in a nice large size, and there's many, many different applications. I've taught a couple of stitch recipe classes, which are a lot of fun, using the decorative stitches in the embroidery. So other things, which is something that's really nice about the Bernina, it's their embroidery modules. So their embroidery modules are focused with the free arm in mind. So both 7 and 5 series, their modules, the way they connect, they allow you to use your free arm all the time. So if you saw in the Bernina 535 video, I have some pictures showing how it's super easy to embroider shirts. You can do onesies because you could just wrap that shirt around here and have the opening of the shirt hole where the hoop comes out and just latches here. So it makes it super, super easy to embroider a number of things that would have been more difficult on another machine. So it's got color resequencing. So basically, if you've got a design or if you got two designs pulled up, and they're both the same thing, or they both have similar colors in each one, or the same colors in each one. As long as they're not overlapping, you can tell it to do color resequencing, and what it will do is it will eliminate a lot of your thread changes. So if you have a red in the design over here, you have that same red in this design over here, it will stitch the red in this design and then go and stitch the red in that design at the same time. So it prevents you from having to put that red on and a second time to do that second design that you have hooped. Color sequencing is a wonderful thing. So sequence control, so that allows us to jump around. So if you want to stitch a certain part of the design first, you can go to that part of the design and then with just this click of the start button, it will start stitching that particular color, which may have been stitched out third, but you can stitch it out first. So it gives you full control, just like on the sewing side, it gives you full control of when and how you want things to really be stitched out, even on the Bernina 570. It does have embroidery tutorials. Like we saw before, we've got sewing tutorials and embroidery tutorials, which is kind of like our on-screen manual. So if you have questions about embroidery, like combining embroidery motifs, they'll give you an explanation. Embroidery hoops, they'll give you the different sizes and their names. Attaching the embroidery module will give you even a little video. So that is the embroidery tutorials. And so, like with all of our Berninas, and we've had this for many, many, many years, is it imports and exports designs via a USB stick. So the USB port right on the side, and you just pretty much stick just any USB stick in there for the most part. It's not really picky, and you'll be able to upload designs and save designs from the machine to the USB stick. So personal memory for embroidery designs. So what this is, we've kind of already seen it. So if you have a design and you've added a name, you've changed some colors, some sizes, and you want to save it onto the machine because you want to stitch it out later, or if it's something you're going to stitch out multiple times, you can save it and it'll be saved in that heart folder. So when you want to go and retrieve it, you go to that heart folder, which is your personal memory for designs. You can also save it on a USB stick by selecting the USB stick on the top. The machines do have a basting function, so this is really nice. So the basting function, we'll see it on the very last embroidery screen. So if you have your stabilizer, your fabric, and you were going to put a topping on top, say if you're stitching on a towel or some terry fiber or a robe or a fleece or flannel or whatever, where you're going to need to use a topping, especially let's say a robe, something that's on the thicker side, and use a water soluble or a heat away topping stabilizer. What you can do to prevent that stabilizer from shifting and moving around is you can do a basting stitch. You can do a basting stitch just around the design, and what it will do is it will attach the topping and all the layers and all the stabilizers together right off the bat. So in the very beginning, it will just kind of stitch them together with a long basting stitch and hold it tight. And then that's something you would remove once all the embroidery is done. We use a lot of that when we do a lot of our embroidery, especially a lot of the quilts that we work with, a lot of the Kimberbell designs, we do a lot of basting. Position recall. This is wonderful. So if you're stitching away and the electricity goes out, or if you're stitching away and you're just tired, you're done, it's late, your design is going to take too much longer and you just want to go to bed, you can stop the machine. Or if electricity goes out, the power just goes out and the machine just turns off. So what would happen is whenever you reboot the machine back up, or turn the machine back on for the next day or whatnot, the machine will want to start exactly where it stopped. It remembered where it was, it remembers the design, the position. It may prompt you to remove the hoop and then click the check mark and let the machine and the module talk to each other, but then it'll prompt you to put that hoop right back on. And you can essentially just hit the start button and it'll start exactly where it stopped. And the 570 and the 590, of course, can use the Bernina Design Work tools, which is a nice feature. So you've got paint work, cut work, and crystal work set with that Design Works. So that pretty much covers all of the embroidery of the machine. There's two more things really. The machine, the 570, comes with two different hoops. It comes with the large oval hoop, which we see here. And also, if you want to know the sizes specifically, you go here, go to the hoops. So like this hoop right here, the oval, is a 5.7 inch by 10 inch hoop. And the other hoop that comes with the Bernina 570 and all the 5 series is the medium hoop. So this is a 3.9 inch by 5.1 inch hoop. So as you can see here, you've got other hoop options. So you have a 2.8 by 2 inch small hoop. You've got the midi hoop, which is essentially the largest single hooping non-positional hoop that you can work with, which is a 6.5 by 10.4 inch hoop. But you do have the option of the mega hoop, which is a 5.9 by 15.7 inch hoop. But that hoop, you can't use a whole thing all at once. You have to work with the top part and then you reposition it and work with the bottom part of the hoop. But so these two hoops come with it, but you do have some options, and that finishes the Bernina 570 Quilters Edition brochure overview. Hopefully it answered all of your questions, because I know if you're looking at the Bernina 570 or 535, 590, they are similar but still quite different. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It helps the channel, it helps other people see the video, and subscribe to the channel so you can see all the upcoming videos, because I've got a plethora of videos planned with the machines. There's so many different machines. There's so many things you can do with them. Happy sewing, happy quilting and embroidering, and stay tuned for more videos.